Oh my. Kifak Mouin, are you still ready to do the light media roundup for Media Wars?
Let's do it.
All right, so here we go. We're going to start with a few tweets. The only thing is that we advise that this is not for children. لأنه في lots of problematic language which we are completely fine with. Language is apparently not the problem of this international political order, it's the actual action. And we also have some tweets from our leader of the free world, so we must be careful.
Yeah,
Here we
and
go.
not for adult men either. Yeah.
Absolutely. Here we go, Moeen. This is your tweet, so I will let you take it from here.
Yes. Has anyone conducted a wellness check on Mark Dubowitz? Dubowitz, of course, is the professional warmonger who's the head of the Foundation for Defense for Democracies, I think he calls it, and has been agitating for this war basically his entire adult life. And I was worried about him once Trump announced the ceasefire, once the Pakistanis announced that a ceasefire had been reached between the US and Iran. Genuinely worried about his well being. I'm waiting for the BBC to conduct follow up interviews with young Iranians devastated that there has been no nuclear attack on their country. This is a reference to the fake story published by the BBC in which it claimed to have interviewed a young Iranian in Tehran who was begging the United States to drop the big one on Iran's capital city to end the Islamic Republic. Absolutely shameful journalism, but these days, shameful journalism is the name of the game at the BBC. Israel and the United States murdered international law in Palestine and are performing its burial rites over Iran. Gets back to a point that many have been making over the past several years, which is that what happens in Gaza will not stay in Gaza. And the shredding of international law, of international norms and values, is now spreading throughout the Middle East, and of course, isn't going to stop there either, as we will all find out to our cost in the coming months and years.
Yeah, I appreciated this tweet. Of course, so many people have been making the same point that the genocide in Gaza has paved the way for the almost total evasion slash destruction of any semblance of the rules based order. If you noticed, there's a lot less invocation of the rules based order in mainstream media in the United States. I've been actually following this, and you hardly hear the language of legality.
Yeah, and I think we had a senior German official, perhaps their foreign minister, stating explicitly that Iran is not entitled to the protections of international law.
Yeah, that made the rounds as well.
Yeah. And this one, many people I've communicated with are understandably bewildered by US Middle East policy and particularly the US Israeli war against Iran. I keep explaining to them that Trump is playing 85 dimensional chess at a level of subtlety entirely beyond their comprehension. If they really want to understand what is happening, they should focus on what Israel is doing because Netanyahu is the only one capable of deciphering Trump's intentions. This, of course, speaks to Trump's sycophant saying that not only does he know exactly what he's doing, but he's doing it so profoundly intelligently that us mere mortals can't figure out what he's up against or what he's doing. And of course, also this idea that has been now very well documented in mainstream media as well, that Israel played an absolutely central role in the decision to launch this war against Iran. The bombing of Sharif University of Technology in Tehran validates what a friend recently said. Gaza has become a verb. This basically speaks to the earlier point we just discussed that norms that were established in Gaza are now spreading across the region and beyond. Does the US government have a legislative branch? Well, the answer is no, because both in the run up to this war and since it erupted, the US Congress has been entirely absent. Of course, US conduct is governed by international law rather than US legislation. But the way that it has simply accepted everything that its leader has done with so little pushback, even from the leadership of the opposition, has been genuinely breathtaking. That is a quote by Timothy Snyder, who likes to present himself as a key analyst of authoritarianism and barbarism and so on. He's an academic, I believe, at Princeton. Um, my tweet is above that. It's not visible on the screen, but I had noted that Timothy Snyder has now successfully gone 2,471 days without mentioning Israel. He's trying to present the whole Iran war as if it's somehow a Russian plot, because for him, everything is about Putin, and he has studiously avoided any mention of Israel in connection with anything for the past several years, while still posturing as a leading opponent of authoritarianism and barbarism.
All right, we're gonna move now to a bit of more rapid fire at some point, and it's gonna be a little bit more jarring and sometimes more sarcastic and so on. So, Moin, you and I can take turns. I can cue you to read some of those. We're gonna start with a broad category on Iran and the US, and then one on Lebanon and Israel, except that there will be some sort of combinations here and there. So we'll start with this post. How many times? And it's telling that, or it's important to start with a post by Plum Thacker on the idea of whether Lebanon was included in the ceasefire. That charade that Israel played, and then of course the United States played into it, sadly, because they don't dare say anything negative about Israel. In fact, when J.D. Vance, coming out of the airplane, was saying that this is a function of a legitimate misunderstanding, which is kind of like, more than what you expect him to say. He went on to talk about how Israel, might sort of slow things down a bit or something of the sort. That was the most offensive or hostile or negative or non-neutral thing he said. There was nothing about the fact that the United States did actually support the 10 points that were published. And so basically, how many times the Thacker says, how many times will we have to keep quoting the direct words of the Trump Vance team's mediator? Is it insane? It is insane, the low regard of these people. These people have and hold us in. And that's the tweet by Shabazz Sharif, the Pakistani official who was actually overseeing
He's a prime minister, I believe.
the prime minister of Pakistan, overseeing the peace slash ceasefire slash agreement, and it does include Lebanon. This is the tweet that he released after the agreements
To
concluded.
announce the ceasefire.
Yeah, and this is Pakistan says U.S. ceasefire included Lebanon. This is actually in the UN asserting the same, and of course it did. And my tweet here says, who are you going to believe, the United States or Iran? I mean, for the past year, we're not going to even address the lies and deceptions that Stephen Miller and others engaged in during the war on Gaza and the genocide in Gaza. But for the past year, between Iran and the United States, as everyone knows, the US led Iran to believe that negotiations were ongoing while they actually started bombing Iran. And there isn't one instance in which even the decrepit US media, the private media, has actually released a statement, a serious statement, that Iran was deceiving or lying in any way, shape, or form. And yet we are asked to believe the United States over Iran, which is actually what I try to say here. Nobody believes the US anymore, deceivers par excellence. And here it is, the response of Israel, which actually is the telling part. And this is by Jeremy Diamond, saying Israeli officials have concerns about U.S.-Iran ceasefire agreement. They have concerns about the ceasefire agreement, and of course, Glenn Deason, who is a commentator that appears quite a bit on social media, saying Israeli officials are concerned that peace may break out.
Aren't they always?
And this is something I'd like to play actually for us. Let me. This is a satirical commentary that it's pretty interesting to share. Let me.
Right. I'm not sure why we're all still having trouble with this. Let's try it again from the top. This is a victory for the U.S. because our goal from day one was for Iran to open the strait that didn't close till after we attacked, which was completely controlled by their military we had total dominance over. And it was a waterway that we could have taken over, but instead asked for help that we didn't need, but we'll remember that our allies did not give us, all because of the negotiating power of a FIFA Peace Prize recipient's threat to annihilate a civilization in order to liberate them from a regime that changed, which was not our goal, but we will take credit for, from an old man who hates us to his younger son who hates us for those reasons and that we killed his father. And while it is not clear the status of Iran's nuclear capabilities that we obliterated last year, but were going to be a problem in 2 weeks, one thing is for sure. They now have more money and control of the strait than they had when they made the old deal that we ended because it was terrible. Now, I think that is enough about authoritarian propagandistic regimes. Does anybody have any questions about the Trump Library golden statue?
Excellent summary.
This is the fantastic Asal Rad from quoting The Onion, Chuck Schumer saying, the American people deserve a president who can more credibly justify war with Iran. This is basically the extent to which the Democrats have sort of barged in with their opposition to endless war. And of course, with the leader like Chuck Schumer, there's the sky's the limit in terms of the vigor and the leadership we need to oppose the only other working party in the United States. This is from Glenn Greenwald, a little reminder for those who need it. Twice as many Americans oppose as support the US's war on Iran. This is important, if only because the whole idea here is that this war from the very beginning was not supported publicly in the United States. And if you compare this war to Iraq, when we had numbers, depending on the time, between 70, 80, and 90% support, and it was still the kind of disaster that we are still living the aftermath of course, in the United States, but more importantly, in the Arab world, in Iraq, where hundreds of thousands of people, a lot of people say more than 1 million people, ultimately were killed. And this one is such that the United States public is firmly not in support of the war. The US adult citizen breakdown is 59 against, 28 for, and 13 in between. And that 13, that number keeps actually getting smaller with time.
Apparently, this is the first time since World War II that a U.S. war has enjoyed less than majority support from the very outset.
And that's basically saying a lot. It's one of the this is such a rare occurrence, which should say something. But we live in a quote unquote democracy where these sorts of things are a nuisance. This is Tucker Carlson saying that Mark Levin is not so subtly counseling President Trump to use nuclear weapons against Iran. And this is actually, people should take the time and listen to these people, these other people that are saying those things, including Mark Levin. But it is important that we have a coterie of people who are subtly or not so, indirectly talking about the use of nuclear weapons, just as they did during the genocide in Gaza. More of the same. This is a post by Yashar Ali, who is certainly an opponent of the Iranian regime. Early on, he was supportive of the protests, like so many people were, because of the very basic demands, and that's before things transferred and transitioned and transformed to something else within the protest that actually made a lot of people queasy or have cold feet. And then, of course, the war pushed people further back. And in all cases, this is Yashar Ali, who is an interesting person to actually quote here, addressing Mark Levin, given that Mark Levin, in the same breath, was talking about the Shah and his position
What
on
an
Israel.
Please
So-
must give back the Arab lands they conquered in 1967. And he believes the Jewish lobby in the United States helps breed Israeli intransigence on that matter. In fact, he says American presidents and presidential candidates are too quick to do the bidding of the Jewish lobby. Surely, Your Majesty, you're not telling me that the Jewish lobby in the United States pulls the strings of the presidency.
Not entirely, but I think even a little too much, even for Israel interests.
You think the Jewish lobby in the United States is too powerful for the interests of Israel?
I think so. Sometimes they are disserving the interests of Israel because
Explain.
they're pushing around too many people.
How do you mean pushing around?
Well, pressuring, they have many means at their disposal. They are putting up pressure on many, many people. And at the end, I don't think that it will even help Israel.
Why, if this is true, why would the President of the United States pay attention to that lobby?
They are strong.
Strong in what sense?
They are controlling many things.
Controlling what?
Newspapers, medias,
Your Majesty.
banks, finances, and I'm going to stop there.
Well, now wait just a second. You really do believe that the Jewish community in the United States is that powerful? They make the media reflect their view of foreign policy?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They do not report, we do not report honestly?
Don't mix things, please. I don't say the media. I say in the media they have people. Not the entire media. Some newspapers will only reflect their views, yes.
No? The New York Times, for instance, is owned by the Salzburger family, who are Jewish. Are you suggesting that the New York Times is biased in its treatment of the question of Zionism, Israel's existence, the United States' relationship with the Arab world?
I will have to put all the articles of the New York Times written on this subject and draw the conclusion. You can put this to the computer and it will answer you.
What you're saying is that, yes, you do believe.
Well, let's wait for the answer of the computer.
Washington Post?
The same.
The networks?
Less.
I must say you are speaking with your characteristic candor.
If you like. I try to be candid. I have always been.
Good old Shah, always putting Israel first.
Any other comments, Mouin?
Well, he's being held up as the greatest leader the region ever had by people who would denounce anyone who came within 100 miles of these statements as a libelous anti-Semite and all the rest of it. But when you're pro-Israeli, you can say whatever you want because it doesn't matter what you think about Jews. What matters is your attitude to Israel.
Absolutely, that's the distinction that is very difficult to make in this bastion of freedom, the United States. All right, so this is Trita Parsi saying that a lot of people in the anti-war majority part of the Iranian diaspora are closely monitoring whether Iranian monarchists who supported the war are waking up from their delusion that Israel would bomb Iran into liberation. Given the clear objective of destroying Iran as a state for decades to come, many are hoping that Iranian monarchists will realize their mistake and turn against the war. Those hopes may need to be tempered. The Mujahideen al Khalq terror organization went from being a relatively popular anti Shah opposition group to being detested after siding with Saddam Hussein invasion of Iran in 1990, and so on and so forth. I quote this and I bring it up because it does reflect the a shifting tide among monarchists against the war, and I'm talking from basically observation, some basic statistics, nothing too scientific, and a huge portion that one can see on social media among people who actually change their tune, not least after the consistent bombing of non-military targets, and certainly and very clearly after President Trump's statement, which we will get to. This is actually a post that Haddad posted from the New York Times with the title "Trump revels in threats to commit war crimes in Iran," and she basically says, "Give credit where credit is due," because usually she corrects New York Times titles. This time she left it alone, and I shared that we need to rejoice a non-fraudulent headline in the New York Times. And I must say, when it comes to the Middle East, and this is the context here. Breaking: Trump says a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. And this is something that we've all seen for the past several days. And this is the post that, based on very basic observation, has actually shifted the viewpoints of a lot of people who, until this moment, don't ask why, continue to support the war. But this one statement actually apparently was shocking to the same people who were listening and reading the same kind of statement, but not as explicit from Trump. What do you have to say, Mouin?
I mean, once you begin saying what you're doing, people take notice.
All right. So my response to this statement, which is unbelievable, is that Hitler would be proud and would blush actually at that kind of like bold, genocidal, explicit words. Welcome to the leader of the free world, and 30 years of teaching, critiquing liberalism is encapsulated in this quote and the relatively mild response to it, which is more important, in my view, than the quote. Wouldn't you say, Moin?
Yeah, I've seen people on social media do all kinds of ideological contortions to explain that this was actually a statement in support of the Iranian people. I mean, it's really incredible.
And this is something we have all learned from Talal Asad, the god of anthropology in the field of anthropology and in the social sciences, who in his book on suicide bombing, he was critiquing liberalism and distinguishing it from other ideologies that have actually claimed millions and millions of lives, as well as liberalism. But he distinguished liberalism from these other ideologies and other regimes, political institutions, countries, states, empires in the modern era by saying that only liberalism is willing to destroy the world in the name of saving it and actually having some legitimacy within its populace throughout the process,
Well put.
which is like something we've been trying to share for years and years, and we were looked at as left-wing nuts, radicals, haters of America, and so on and so forth. All these stupid words that have no conception of what a country is, what a nation is. When I asked Robert Jensen, a journalist, I don't know if he's ever listening, in 2005, when we were producing the film on discourses on terrorism in 2005, and I said, jokingly, I said, "Do you hate America?" Because he was critiquing the barbarism that we exhibited in Iraq and so on. And he said he said a lot of things that were kind of sarcastic, but he basically said America is not a finished thing; it's a thing in the making. And when we ask this question, we basically need to know which America we're referring to. And he said there are Americas that I hate with a passion, referring to certain times and periods, and there are things within America that are very different from others. So the issue here is how liberalism allows us to camouflage the worst atrocities in the name of liberation. I had shown in an earlier um, tweet a cartoon that basically has a kid and his father watching the bombing of Iraq to smithereens in Baghdad in 2003, and the kid looks at his father and says, "I hope nobody liberates us, Daddy." You want to take this one?
This is Murtaza Hussein. One consequence of this war is that moral arguments made by Americans have become self-evidently absurd to the rest of the world. 2 decades ago, people took them seriously, and they still had enough sting of plausibility to make them effective. The entire episode is transparent.
This
Speaks
is
for itself. Oh.
absolutely, and we will, address it in further posts, like this one.
Yep. If you don't know what you're doing, then your enemy doesn't know what you're doing either. Don Tzu, The Art of War. And this is, of course, a reference to the famous text by Sun Tzu.
This is a post by Amir, who has been very active. He's a neurosurgeon from Germany, an Iranian who lives in Germany, I believe. That would be enough if the problem was only Trump. And this is basically what we all always want to get to. I mean, this whole idea of Democrats criticizing Trump, especially when Hillary Clinton criticizes Trump and the Republicans, it becomes a farce. It becomes theater. Because the idea that Trump is the problem is just like the idea that Netanyahu is the problem.
Yep.
In all cases, he says it's not. He's not the problem, or not the only problem. It's not enough to identify him. It's the entire system that will keep birthing Trumps. It's an oligarchy represented by duopoly, referring to the two-party system, with both parties functioning as each other's controlled opposition. It's the Democrats that remain a fundamentally undemocratic party, blocking any popular leftist movement in order to protect their billionaire donor class, the same class that actually, in many ways, supported Obama to the tune that is higher than those who supported his opponent in 2007 and 8 and 9, while the GOP. This was my addition to what Amir was saying. While the GOP has opened its gates to anyone and anything from the KKK to Satan himself to win elections, it's the entire political system that is de facto an international auction house for purchasing corrupt politicians. And we've seen that, of course, during the Epstein files, but we also knew so much of it prior. But the Epstein files was like one destination where you can see a lot of it. Getting rid of Trump is just cosmetics. Ouch. To our liberal
Let me
friends.
just add, if he's going to make the valid point that the Democrats have become a fundamentally undemocratic party, he might also have pointed out that the Republicans have become a fundamentally unrepublican party by having anointed Trump as a kind of emperor and transforming the party into a personality cult.
Absolutely. All right, next. This is about the bombing of the universities. What a creative way of describing a war crime. And the CNN title here is Universities Become a New Frontier as the US Israel War Against Iran Escalates. I mean, the complicity is simply off the charts. For me, I read this and automatically the complicity sort of oozes out. It's interesting that this the reason I chose this is because a lot of people read it and they just assume that, oh, now universities are being hit and that's not cool. But the framing, imagine if the universities that were being hit were Israel's or American universities.
And you read this headline, and it sounds like there are skirmishes taking place between armies on university campuses. Not that they're being bombed to smithereens.
Yeah, I mean the actual reporting by the New York Times, CNN, let alone Fox. I'm not going to bring Fox as an example. It's not fair anymore. It hasn't been fair for like a couple of decades. But CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, the way they reported on the encampments was actually harsher than the total
Yeah.
destruction of entire universities, sometimes with staff included and so on.
Yeah.
Imperial Hubris. I titled this. This is a post addressing how the New York Times is now describing Iran's very normal acts of self defense, shooting down American jets that are bombing their fucking country, as an escalation from Iran's leadership. This is also unbelievable how the New York Times refers to augmenting people's anxiety are the recent escalations from Iran's leadership by firing against the jets that are bombing them. I have no words, Mouin.
There are none.
All right. This is first. I mean, I actually need to do this. This is French President Macron. We should not be passive in this new disorder. We have to build a new order. And my first reaction to it is few things are scarier than a Western leader or politician trying to establish a new order. Every time I hear that, like from the birth pangs of the new Middle East, which Condoleezza Rice announced as a function of her position within the Bush administration after the Iraq War,
During the Israeli attack on Lebanon in 2006.
and and a couple of other instances, and you can't bake better bread from the same dough.
Well put.
Reza Nasri. This is not something we're going to read, but do you wanna take this? Just you wanna read a few passages?
For over a decade, we Iranians have watched Western countries, Arab regimes, and their Israeli enablers stand by as our economy was deliberately crushed under the weight of America's illegal sanctions and maximum pressure campaign. We watch them eagerly comply with policies designed to destroy our nation, shatter our lives, crush our dreams, bankrupt our businesses, rot our infrastructure, devalue our currency, and cut us off from normal trade and economic relations with the world.
And then he goes on to he basically goes through the history, and he ends very. I mean, it's a very acceptable even to opponents of where this person stands. And he ends by saying, "This time we will not be the only ones who will feel pain," because it's true. It's the only time where there's been a response, and this, of course, is in response to the statement by another one of the statements by Trump. Remember when I gave Iran 10 days to make a deal or open up the Hormuz Strait? Time is running out, 48 hours before all hell will rain down on them. I mean, how many times has he said these things? I joke, we laugh, but it could very well be that something will actually happen. And
And the
you know,
Democrats, rather than saying he shouldn't be making these threats at all, started mocking him for not following through.
yeah, like you're not a, quote unquote a real man, which is the last thing you want to tell someone like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Lord Alumer strikes again. This is a note by Sina Tusi. Starts by saying the scary part is that Lord Alumer is often a useful barometer for where the most influential pro-Israel faction around Trump is heading. This suggests where we are heading. This suggests where they want to push the political needle, and this is in reference to a post by Lord Alumer, which I will go to right now. Oh my God, it doesn't exist anymore. She took it out. It was basically pushing for the use of all sorts of weapons, or open the door for it. And I wrote, Lord Alumer strikes again. First, she exponentially inflates the killing of protesters to justify war on Iran. Then Trump personally called her right when he launched the war. A lot of people don't recognize that this is actually a fact that was addressed by Trump and others. He said actually on a video, which we can show, that he called Laura Loomer right away to tell her that he did what he did. So her inflating the numbers and saying all sorts of things from very early on, even before more people were actually indeed killed, is a significant act by Laura Loomer herself. Not just we're not talking about everyone. We're talking about Laura Loomer in particular. So he called her when he launched the war. Then the war actually faltered. Now she wants to destroy Iran altogether. Read below because the post is gone now. Obviously, for some reason, she has some conscience or rationality. And the barbarian Iranian monarchists, those not yet repulsed by the destruction of Iran, still support her actually and still defend her.
Well, I think what people may not know but need to understand about US politics is that there's actually conveyor belt from the insane asylum to the White House.
Absolutely, and this is significant because everybody and their mother who supports the Shah's son, not the daddy but the son, and who support Laura Loomer, like went nuts on me with hundreds, if not thousands, of posts when I actually criticized her approach to the inflation of the numbers, because she was indeed a significant player that has the ears of this man in the White House who is saying all these things that he's saying. Even this person, Laura Loomer, actually took down this post, which I think I have a screenshot of, but it's no longer available, unfortunately. But there we have it. This is why so many of us were critical of this warmongering prior to this brutal, barbaric war. So this is basically something about critiquing Israel for pushing the U.S. into the war. This is Shlomo Levin saying, do you want to read it? Mouin, you have a radio voice.
Saying that Israel dragged the US to war isn't just wrong, it's anti Semitic. And of course it is. Netanyahu was anti Semitic for constantly promoting this war. All the other Israeli leaders who were basically saying the US must conduct this war and that Iran was somehow an existential threat to the United States. They were, of course, anti Semitic. Reality, if it's not in Israel's favor, becomes an anti Semitic blood libel.
Just some background, folks. This is customary of so many of the tweets that are produced by Iranian embassy staff in various countries, from Tunisia to Tajikistan. This is basically describing or trying to convey the Iran's geopolitical situation at this moment. And here's the post or the video in full.
Well, I think the Iranians won the meme war this time around.
This is another response, I guess, for Shlomo. If you didn't notice, the person whose head is being hit or is hitting Iran is the U.S., and the person on the right is Israel. And that's because the U.S. is actually going to pay a much higher price than Israel, and we are, and it is doing so. Well, every time I see those drones and those flights, those jets and those bombs, and then the anti missiles and the Iron Dome, I keep looking at the television and wondering, like, these are my tax dollars, our tax dollars. All right, so here we have the bombing of Rabbi Yunus Hamami Lalezar from Iran. Iranian Jewish rabbi, leader of Iran's Jewish community, stands before the ruins of a synagogue in central Iran or Tehran, destroyed by the US Israeli bombing. That's after they bombed the synagogue. And my comment is Zionists will bomb God and all the prophets to protect the racist Israeli settlers. Hence the difference between Zionism and Judaism, which you know that's the difference. When you eliminate it, everybody becomes anti-Semitic, and when you actually establish it, you're dealing with the actions of a state. This is a 7-year-old kid logic and rationality that for some reason, oh, we know what the reason is not adopted. This is to the liberal Zionists, in fact. I mean, that post. Do you want to say anything about liberal Zionists?
I absolutely don't.
All right. Enough said. Yes, this is Iranians. Iranians are animals. Somalis are garbage people. Rubio says decolonization was the worst thing for Western European genocidal, or for Western Europeans. Genocide is normalized in Palestine. You see a pattern here, this person is asking, and my response is yes, but at least he, President Trump, never said migrants eat dogs and cats. All right, so we'll move to our last segment. This is on Israel and Lebanon, and we start with a comment from Maya Migdashi. Would you like to do the honors, Mouin?
How many times do we have to watch our children, our elders, our people, the lucky ones, dug out of collapsed buildings? In Lebanon, Palestine, and Iran, too many homes have become tombs. We promise against the world, each act of barbarism is engraved in our hearts and minds forever. Of course, have a very powerful interview with episode Media Wars.
I'm going to play the video. This is a video of a little girl stuck under the rubble after Israel's bombing. This site is one of the worst sites that we have witnessed over and 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 over again in Gaza.
هياها زحمة بسام هياها يا عم هياها هياها لاريسا اعطيني ايدك لهون يا عمي ما في على الان اجري بسام اعطيني ايدك لهون يا عم هو بيشيلك من هوليكي لاريسا يلا طلعت باذن الله طلعت يا علي يا رب يا علي يا الله هياها
You could see them calling her Larissa, give me your hand.
هياها يا عم هياها لاريسا اعطيني ايدك لهون يا عم ما في على الان اجري بسام اعطيني ايدك لهون يا عم هو بيشيلك من هوليكي لاريسا يلا طلعت باذن الله طلعت يا علي يا رب يا علي يا الله هياها
You're muted, Bassam.
Jesus. This is Rami Abdul noting that earlier on, the second village destroyed by the Israeli army today, after leveling Naura, which is a place that we were at this past summer with my family, the beautiful mountains in Lebanon. After leveling Naura, Israeli forces released footage showing the destruction of the village of Taibe in southern Lebanon. No international condemnation, no outrage. This is a literal blowing up step by step of a village in Lebanon.
Systematic destruction.
This is another site from Beirut. This is all the depraved Israelis are going to ever be known for after committing genocide on Gaza, bombing Lebanon, and bombing Iran. This was Beirut today. These are the horrific events which now we know have led to the killing of more than 350 people and the maiming or injury of over 1,000. This is one of the journalists in Lebanon that was killed by direct Israeli fire. Her name is Fatma Ftouni, and a lot of people were affected though some people pointed out that she had radical views. If you're bombing the
no.
fuck out of people and they don't have radical views of the people bombing them, who are you? And her radical views was supporting the resistance. It wasn't the kinds of and supporting basically the resistance fighting back.
It's like saying anyone in France during the Second World War who opposed Vichy had radical views.
Yeah, we mentioned that in your previous post last time. That was a really good post. This is American journalist Abby Martin on her visit to Israel. The whole world has to isolate this rogue state. Shame on anyone who goes there. You cannot expect change in a society this far gone. We're seeing essentially the Fourth Reich today marching forward. I'll just play a couple of seconds.
Isolate this rogue, apartheid, genocidal, maniac, serial killing, pathologically lying state. Isolate it. Shame anyone who goes there. Academics, celebrities, politicians, and they've been exposed for what they are. And Zionism's on its last leg. It only exists by the weight of its propaganda, and that propaganda has collapsed entirely. The world sees Israel for what it is, and it can't last for long in its current state. You cannot expect change in a society this far gone. It is full-throated fascist. And that's why they act the way they do, with full, total impunity, because they have no humanity left. This is a society so far gone with protection of a military empire with hatred in their hearts. And we're seeing essentially the Fourth Reich today marching forward, and there's no allied forces coming to save us. The Israeli Knesset just passed a law allowing the execution of Palestinian prisoners, but not Israelis. This is the true face of apartheid Israel. But this is nothing new. I saw this firsthand when I was in Israel back in 2016. Full-throated fascism.
You can't deal with these people. There's no need to try. There's no need to talk to them.
There's only one way. Like, I would carpet bomb them.
You would carpet bomb them?
It's the only way you could deal with it.
I didn't realize this. I didn't realize how viscerally, grotesquely genocidal Israelis were. How openly fascist.
I have to be honest. I appreciate those turning points, and Abby is a wonderful speaker, and she's been doing the rounds. But I'm getting tired of people discovering Israel being the brutal, occupying, ethnic cleansing, apartheid, barbaric state for the past that it is and has been for the past several decades. Any comments, Mouin?
No, I haven't made my discovery yet. You're muted. You're muted, Bassam.
Check out CNN International. They are a little bit more racy than CNN US.
Okay.
Yeah, they say things like Israel did something bad today.
Killed a 6-year-old woman.
This is Diab Abu Jaja, whom we saw in Belgium recently. Israel has now become the first state to codify a death sentence that applies in practice to one ethnic group while another is effectively shielded from it. This is also what Abby just mentioned. This is Nathan Thrall. Can you take this, Mouin? Because I'm starting to bore people.
In 1949, David Ben-Gurion told the Knesset that a Jewish state could not have been created without ethnic cleansing and massacres like Deir Yassin. A Jewish state without Deir Yassin is impossible if it is to be democratic. And of course, you can only have a state that is both Jewish and democratic if Jews have an uncontested demographic majority. Because if you have too many non-Jews, then you have to choose between being a Jewish state and a democracy. And as I think Abby Martin made very clear, and as Ben-Gurion here emphasizes, the decision was made from the very beginning. The purpose is a Jewish state. And in order to have a democratic one as well, you need to ethnically cleanse all the others.
And I just can't get over the fact that so many people who support Israel try to evade the actual rational statements and positions of the early Zionists who were honestly far more honest and straightforward about what needs to be done to establish a Jewish state in a Jewish minority territory. Whatever the context, whatever the details, that's the only way to do it. And for some reason, when we say it, it sounds, for the dominant narrative in the United States, it sounds radical or anti-Semitic. But this is what these early Zionists were saying explicitly.
But it's not only when we say it. If you quote these statements by Zionist leaders back to them, and if they think they're your statements rather than theirs, they'll denounce you. That's blood libel. That's anti-Semitism. That's how dare you. That's genocidal. And then you just have to tell them who actually made the statement.
And you can find these online. You can buy the books and read how, where Ben Gurion said a Jewish state without Deir Yassin, the massacre of Deir Yassin throughout the country, can only be a dictatorship of the minority. In plain words, and this is the end of the quote, in plain words, Ben Gurion explained that there is no effective ethnic cleansing without massacres like the one that took place in Deir Yassin. He told his critics in the Knesset that if they wanted both the entire land of Israel and the Jewish state, more massacres were needed. We must perpetrate, and then the quote continues, Deir Yassin throughout the country. And this is just, by the way, he was milder than some others, right, Mouin, at the time?
Yep. When it comes to the need to expel the Arab population, it wasn't just him. All the Zionist leaders said that, and they said it repeatedly. So this can't be pinned on just one fanatic leader. It was the leadership of a movement that knew exactly what it was doing, because it knew there was only one way to achieve its objective.
Yeah, and hopefully, what we'll do is that we'll list all of these links in the final post that will go up on Jadaliyya, so that people can look into this more and corroborate, fact check, do whatever you'd like to do. But this is like a sea. It's not like a little pond somewhere where we are selecting problematic posts or quotes from the early Zionists. This is the whole sea. This is the actual sea where things were being said and made all the time, incessantly and rationally and honestly, and it's everywhere, right? So you can check, anybody can check on their own, in case this is something that people, as actually we are accustomed to, people read Jadaliyya's material, people watch Jadaliyya's podcasts, and they show them in classrooms, and this is one of the mainstays of why we keep doing this, because it lives in the classroom. And this is Nathan Thrall, by the way, sharing all these things, who's recently written a book that you interviewed. You interviewed him, right?
I did, yes. A Day in the Life of Abed Salama. Absolutely wonderful book by a fantastic author and analyst.
All right, very quickly, we're going to jump around. This is Frank Luntz. 60% of American adults now have an unfavorable view of Israel. Are you shocked?
What? No. What happened to the other 40? What's wrong with them?
That's up from 53 last year and 42% in 2022. In both political parties, a majority of adults under the age of 50 view Israel negatively. 84% of Democrats, 57% of Republicans. And this is the pewresearch.org.
60% of adults have a negative view of apartheid South Africa. Wouldn't we also say what's wrong with the other 40%?
Absolutely. But we're not there yet, even though the tide is shifting.
Sure.
And the big discussion, we don't have to talk about it now, because if we have other tweets, and you and I have a life, we've been working on this show for like 16 years now. The question is, or becomes, to what extent is this reversible? And you saw me ask this question several times as we have been doing these conversations, you and I, with others. And that's a really important way of thinking about the possibility of reversals. I don't think it's reversible.
No.
You can opine quickly on it if you like.
It's irreversible. It's definitive and irreversible.
Yeah. Not least because of the demographic question.
Yeah.
And the sons and daughters of Zionists and Israel supporters, because some Israel supporters, would like to distinguish themselves from Zionists. I don't know how, but the point is that the idea is that the sons and daughters, the new generation, the younger generation, is not just repulsed by a massacre. They basically, essentially, reject the entire raison d'etre of an apartheid state, with or without a genocide. And that is something that we've seen happen or develop for more than 15 years. And I think it escalated after 2014, because that's when many of us started paying attention, right? After the operation, in the barbaric operation in Gaza that killed more than 2,000 people, right?
Yeah, and it's, it's not just aversion to a foreign state, but they're constantly being indoctrinated of this is being done in your name. So these people are saying, actually, no, not in our name.
Yeah, and if people say, why are you guys talking about Israel and views of Israel at a time when there's a war with Iran? It's precisely because Israel has a lot to do with what's happening in Iran.
Yeah.
This is not simply people just picking on Israel. Israel committed genocide in Gaza, is bombing Beirut, is bombing the southern part of Lebanon into smithereens, blowing up villages. We just showed one scene, and there are many, many others. And the Israelis themselves film it and send it out. So this is not basically a fixation on Israel. Israel has a fixation on expansion and demolition of life elsewhere in order to protect its security, with Europe and the United States at the most sitting by, and in the positive sense, they're also contributing. Zachary Foster, the only demographic still pro-Israel in the United States is a Republican over 50, and that is just a way of recognizing the extent to which this is dwindling, even among Republicans over 50. If you look at basically at the longitudinal record of this same statistic and data, you see that even Republicans over 50, this is not growing; it's actually decreasing. Yep. And isn't this? They call these old people, Mouin, I'm offended. People over 50 are old? The fuck?
In the prime of their lives.
أكيد شو هالحكي هذا. All right. Next, very quickly. Okay, we've seen this, but let's look at it again. I'm hoping this is a balloon, by the way. Nothing really harsh. Okay, enough. This is a post by Bassam Haddad. Genocide is the antithesis of empathy. This is legacy. This is legacy. And this, of course, was published on April 4th, and it was a response to various posts on Israel. And there's nothing to say here. This view, this image was repeated thousands of times. In this case, there's a little girl who's dead. Her father's picking her up. Actually, I can't confirm it's the father, but a family member or somebody who rescued her. And there's nothing to say except fuck you all. All right. Honestly, once you look deep into your soul, what's there not to love about Israelis? And here's a video, quick video, very nice video.
רק להשמיד את ישראל, הם הכינו הרי טילים להשמיד את כל אזור המפרץ, ואני שואל אותך או את השר בן גביר, מי שרצה לענות ראשון, למה אנחנו לא משתמשים בפצצת ניוטרון, זה נקרא? זה סוג של פצצת אטום שלא פוגעת במבנים, היא הורגת את כל האנשים באופן מוגבל, בכל המקומות.
אני הבנתי שאתה...
השר בן גביר, מה אתה אומר על...
מעלה ראשון, תן לו. אני הבנתי...
בן גביר לא רוצה להיכנס פה.
תשמע, אחרי מה שקרה עם השר אליהו, אז בן גביר לא מבין מזה, מימין עקף אותו פתאום.
הוא לא מבין מה הולך פה. הוא לא תהיה על האטום. הוא לא מבין מה הולך פה, מה קורה פה, כן. אגב, זה יכול לחסוך הרבה חיים של בני אדם.
לא משתמש במושג אטום, אבל אני ראיתי...
ניוטרון, זה נקרא פצצת ניוטרון.
יש בסופש האחרון דיווחים על כך שישראל תקפה עיר טילים בסביבת מיצר הורמוז.
נכון, והיה בום מטורף.
נכון, זה מה שאני יודע, זה מה ש...
רגע. והיא תקפה את זה בצורה בנשק לא קונבנציונלי?
לא אמרתי את זה. ומה פתאום? לא נראה לי. זה לא הסטייל של ישראל, תשמור על הכבוד שלה.
ריקלין.
כן, שמעון.
ריקלין.
אני מכיר את החיוך שלך.
כן.
אני מכיר את החיוך שלך, השר בן גביר, מאוד לפני הרבה שנים. אתה מסתיר פה משהו.
לא, ברצינות. אני חבר קבינט מצומצם.
נכון.
האחריות עליי פי מיליון. עמדתי ידוע ואני אומר אותה בצורה הכי פשוטה. אנחנו צריכים למחוק את משטר הטרור האיראני.
So the issue is here, Mouin, is whether these statements are mainstream or not.
Oh, very. I mean, in this particular instance made by an extremist, but you even have mainstream U.S. politicians who have said they should drop an atomic bomb on Gaza, and commentators.
Yeah,
so it's become, using the same people who invaded and destroyed Iraq under the false pretense that it had weapons of mass destruction, are now weapons of mass destruction, now casually advocate the use of weapons of mass destruction against Arabs, against Iranians, in the Middle East. It's become a regular occurrence.
And if you watch the blogosphere or the podcast world in Israel, if you follow reports on it, at least, the recurring instances of this kind of language, and I'm not going to show some of the older views. These are all, as you can tell, this is all for the most part, from April, late March. It's very explicit, and these are not always even Likud party supporters.
No.
And that's basically what distinguishes Israel from, I guess, everywhere today. I mean, you do hear this in some circles in the United States, but the level of occurrence and the level at which it happens within government and parliament
dramatically. Yeah.
So and it's all on record. I mean, and one wonders, why is it still going? But on the other hand, we are seeing a very belated response by public opinion in the United States, which, as you said, what's wrong with the other 40 or 35%? All right, we're almost done. A couple more pieces. This is basically, I guess that's Netanyahu saying, after they killed journalists, they just killed another journalist in 2 days ago, was it? Or yesterday in
Gaza.
2 days ago in Gaza. Muhammad... sorry, Fashaha? Washaha. Muhammad Washaha was killed. And we actually showed this picture in the Media Wars podcast, which is the main podcast. And we were supposed to do this segment after, but the podcast took 2.5 years. It's that long, 2.5 hours, actually. So we decided to do this separately so people don't start planning to shoot us. They were trying to shoot us. Well, look at it. I'm using the same language. And this is, who is this? Mondo Weiss or Carlos? This is, can't tell who this is.
Can't tell.
And that's Kenneth Roth. Israel keeps killing journalists in Gaza now, 262 since October 7th, 2023. Israel's cover-up of its genocide should be part of the evidence of genocidal intent. And Kenneth Roth is actually criticized by so many people that he doesn't do enough to expose the crimes of Israel. So he's considered, somebody who is likely to be like a centrist, but also from the other side, from the supporters of Israel's side, they think he's anti-Semitic because he's exposing these things. America is a very interesting place. All right, Asal Rad also speaks, corrects or addresses this title by Associated Press that says, displaced by war, Lebanon's Christians mark Easter far from their homes and churches. Because you know what? Because Lebanon's Christians were like, fuck it, I'm gonna celebrate Easter far from my house because it's kind of cool. Also far from churches. So she asks, who displaced them? Who bombed Lebanon on Easter Sunday, killing at least 11 people at the time, including a 4-year-old and so on. And this is, something that has increased since then in terms of the total tally. But that's AP for you. I mean, this is the contrast between the genocidal center and center-right in Israel, and then the counterpart in the United States, which enables and prepares the public for accepting that sort of
you know,
Barbarism.
a point
Barbarism.
a point I've been making is that Western journalists are given more leeway to be critical of their own governments, have more freedom to scrutinize their own governments than the foreign state of Israel. And Israeli journalists have more freedom to scrutinize and criticize the Israeli government than foreign journalists do to criticize the Israeli government. I don't think there is any similar case in the history of journalism.
Absolutely. And also, by the way, I say absolutely a lot. I really should stop. I need to like hold myself accountable to this.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. If you also, notice what we have been observing in Israel in terms of publications and less so on TV channels. If these folks were writing not in Haaretz but in the New York Times or Washington Post, first they will not be allowed. They would be not just fired, they will be shamed and they will be smeared as anti-Semites. And many of them are actually very committed Jews to Judaism. These are not people who are criticizing the state of Israel from a secular point of view, even. So it's remarkable the extent to which our polity here, including professors, deans, and presidents in universities, how cowardly they are in allowing for the very basics on campus. And now actually they've succeeded because everybody is worried that they would lose their job or would be smeared if they actually go against this. It's an unbelievable. We are living in it.
Demands, fire this person, deport that person, revoke that person's citizenship, make this person persona non grata. It's really it's an absolute totalitarian mentality.
Yeah, and it's so shameful. We know these people. They are our colleagues that we worked with. They are our deans that we worked with. They are our presidents that we actually connected with. And they have a multitude of reasons, but ultimately at base, even if it's not ideology, because a lot of them don't buy Israel's shit, but it's cowardice. It's cowardice.
It's pure opportunism and cowardice.
All right, we're almost done. Two more, and that is Israel killed 357 people in Lebanon in one day. That's on the fateful day a couple of days ago. Do you understand the level of impunity that you have to experience to commit a massacre, then openly boast about it? And this is breaking news from actually today. Yeah, I don't know what to say. All right, and finally, this is Mondo Weiss, the fantastic publication with our friend Adam Horowitz and many good people. How long will governments allow Israel to commit war crime after war crime? It's a cartoon by Carlos Latouf, the remarkable illustrator. So how long, Mouin?
Well, that's up to us, no?
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, it's not reversible, but I mean the sort of dramatic decline of views on Israel, it's not reversible, but it also needs to be exacerbated by simply exposing what's going. We don't. People don't even have to do more than just expose. They don't have to organize. They don't have to create a third party or a fourth party. Just relaying what is going on. It's like almost having a camera that's filming 24/7 what's happening in Gaza and with the West Bank or in Iran or in Lebanon. And you've heard. I'll close with this by asking you something substantive. You heard what was released today about the decision to establish, is it 34 or 24 new settlements in the West Bank?
Yeah. No, just impunity breeds impunity. So when you get away with something, next time you do more, and when you get away with that, you act as if there are absolutely no restraints on you, and you can do whatever, and your crimes get progressively worse and more brazen, and that's exactly what's happening. But again, the world is pushing back, and unfortunately, not pushing back fast or hard enough. But I'm absolutely confident that things will change. You're muted, I think.
I said absolutely on mute. طيب, thanks Mouin for persevering.
Thank you.
And we'll come back with another episode of Media Wars in 2 weeks. We're doing it every 2 weeks because, there's, we need to sort of let things breathe a little bit and collect enough material and put together a nice panel like we did the day before yesterday. Thanks everyone for watching, and brace for impact. Nobody knows what's going to happen next. Salam. Thanks to all.
Bye.
America first? Oops. Oh boy, that was the slogan you sold. But Bibi's pulling strings and your vote is getting cold. We're not just fighting for Iran, hear this clear. Your people reached out to us. Yeah, we got the DMs here. If one nation's gonna stand against the Epstein regime's fear, it's us till the last breath. We've been doing it for years. We're standing here for everyone. Your system ever wrong, they've known all along. The enemy was always you. The real threat wore a suit and sung a patriotic song while selling their own citizens and calling it strong. Stealing from your own people, making them bleed, taking tax dollars just to fund your own greed. They waking up to the lies, the illusions of burst. You screamed America first, nah, you put losers first. Make Israel great again. Your government is run by pedophiles. They ordered you to die for Israel. They ordered you to die for Israel. They lied to you all. We saw everything. If the public ever saw the files, man, the planet would shake from the level of filth and the crimes in your wake. No wonder Jeff called you the worst, you degenerate.